SCORE Northeast Wisconsin and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences. From starting to sustaining growth, learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you miss anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk with SCORE and the fourth episode in our series on the business of sports and recreation. Americans now spend about $1.5 trillion a year on sports and outdoor recreation. To put that in perspective, let's look at what we spend in a few other categories. $30 billion a year spent on plays and concerts, $150 billion a year spent on movies, streaming, and TV, $150 billion spent on reading, and $200 billion spent on culture and heritage, think museums and historical sites. So it has rapidly become one of the largest categories of spending, and this is a dramatic historical shift. Median family incomes have grown around 7.5 times over the last 50 years, while spending on sports and outdoor recreation has grown more than 50 times. The sports and outdoor recreation industry is now larger than more traditional industries such as farming, mining, and utilities, among others. This month, we're featuring experts and entrepreneurs operating in this rapidly growing and changing industry. So welcome to Biz Talk. I'm Terry Pinch, one of the co-hosts this week. And joining me this week as co-host is internet celebrity Megan Mulholland. How are you, Megan?
Thanks, Terry. I'm really good, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So you should tell our listeners how you became an internet celebrity.
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. If you're talking about like being on LinkedIn and being a personal branding person, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, when you have an 18-year-old tell you you're an internet celebrity and a person you don't even know, that's when you know you are one.
Okay. Yes, and I have a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old, and yes, they always laugh when we go someplace and someone knows who they are because I have shared stories about them. So they get a kick out of having a mom as someone a lot of people in the community know.
Good. Okay, so Megan, you're going to lead off this week's episode, so we'll let you get started.
And I love this. I've always been an outdoors enthusiast, hiker, camper. I love all different kinds of activities. So when I met Ben Ganther at a chamber business after 5 where he was hosting at Odyssey Climbing and Fitness, we started talking and I wanted to learn more. So this was a great way to do it, was to have him on the podcast. So welcome, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you give us a little bit of background on Odyssey Climbing and Fitness, but start off a little bit with more about your background, kind of your business background and your climbing background?
Sure. So a little bit about me, I guess. So I grew up in Northeast Wisconsin, born in Oshkosh, grew up in Wrightstown for many years, and then graduated high school from Green Bay, Notre Dame. And so kind of up and down the 41 corridor, went to school at UW-Madison, and then graduated and did real estate development in Milwaukee for about 10 years. And it was in Milwaukee that I started climbing. So I started climbing at an indoor climbing gym down there called Adventure Rock. My brother-in-law, Sam, is actually my business partner. He's the one that got us all into climbing about 10 years ago. So about when we were all in Milwaukee for the first time together. So he and my sister, a couple of years younger, they moved to Milwaukee shortly after I did. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. It kind of became our social circle, kind of the things that we do to hang out. We would go climb Tuesdays and Thursdays and then go get a bite or something to drink afterwards. And then same thing on the weekends. And so after doing that for a while, and then we would come up to Northeast Wisconsin to visit family, we would bring our climbing stuff with us because we kind of just assumed there was a climbing gym up here and somewhere between Green Bay and Oshkosh, because it's the third largest population density in the state. And when we found out that there wasn't, that was kind of the beginning of Odyssey. So that was where our journey started.
So, leading on that, you started first in Green Bay in 2023, right? What caused you to pick Green Bay, and why become an entrepreneur? Because you hadn't been one before.
Correct. Yeah. Maybe we're just a little crazy. And definitely naive. I think we thought it was going to be easy, but, the real estate development background helped a lot because especially getting a climbing gym open, it's basically a development deal. So you have to find the land, you've got to negotiate with landowners, you've got to put budgets together, you've got to put financing together, you've got to get a building designed and built and manage costs and get permits, and all that stuff is essentially the work that I did prior to opening Odyssey. And so that really served us well. But there were a lot of stops and starts. So we weren't just focusing on Green Bay when we were first starting. We were kind of looking at both Green Bay and Appleton. And the way that we ended up with our location up there is actually through Appleton. So we had, found a site in Green Bay that we liked. That didn't end up working out. We found a site in Appleton that we liked. That didn't end up working out. It was COVID. So it's kind of weird times. And then we got connected to a development partner of ours through the city of Appleton, because they had a site in downtown Appleton that it just wasn't going to quite work for what we were looking for, but we knew about the project that they had going on in Ashwaubenon. So the developers merged urban development, and we ended up partnering with them and saying, hey, like, we would love to locate with the project that you've already got approved up in Ashwaubenon. And to their credit, I don't think I've ever seen a developer move as fast as they did. They said, yes, let's do it. We worked on a concept plan. It worked for us, and we're kind of straight into lease negotiations and taking it off from there. So, I'd say the lesson there is, we were pretty flexible with where we would go, but you got to knock on a lot of doors. I mean, we talked to dozens of different property owners and building owners and landowners to try to find the right site and make something work. And getting that to line up with the financing was kind of the trick.
And then when did you open Appleton?
We opened the Appleton location in September of 25, so coming up on a year.
So it was just 2 years after Green Bay.
2.5 years. Yeah.
So why, I don't want to say that soon, or was that too long? 2.5 to open a second location.
That was definitely crazy. These are pretty capital intensive projects. And we were fortunate that the Green Bay location did pretty well from the start, but we essentially took all of the profits from the Green Bay location's first couple of years operating and plowed it back into the business to fund the expansion of Appleton. So we were fortunate enough to be able to do that. And it was always our plan to have an Appleton location. The offering for us as a business is, it's pretty important to have a membership that can be serviced in Green Bay and Appleton, because prior to opening Appleton, about 10 to 15% of our members were driving up from Appleton. And so we knew that there'd be value there for the Appleton community. But then it was also somewhat of a threat to us that if somebody else opened a climbing gym in Appleton, it would be pretty difficult for us to grow. So, that was the strategy, and yeah, we're just pretty lucky that it worked out.
When you started the second location, were there some things you wanted to do differently than you had done in Green Bay from that 2.5 year experience?
A lot. There's a lot that we wanted to do differently, and I would say there's a lot that we would do differently than what we did in Appleton too. So you're always learning, I think that's probably one of the things about being an entrepreneur is you guys can walk in the space and say, wow, this is so cool. And I walk in and I just see all the things wrong with it. I'm like, gosh, I wish we did that differently. And so, you're always trying to iterate. You're always trying to improve. But yeah, we learned some things from Green Bay. So the flow in Appleton's a little bit better. It's less congested for people coming in for the first time. Once you're in the space, you can really explore and find different opportunities to push yourself and climb. We've got different features and amenities like a sauna and a yoga room that's dedicated that allow us to do more programming. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we incorporated that we weren't able to do in Green Bay.
And as part of your name is climbing and fitness. So do you tie the fitness aspect into the climbing too to kind of, or are they really two separate things in the same location?
It's mostly there to just represent that it's not just climbing, right? I think a lot of people, especially if they're not familiar with a climbing gym, they almost think more of like an amusement park than they do like a fitness, wellness, social membership model, right? And so the fitness tries to help capture some of that. But climbing itself is inherently like a really good workout. And so that's part of it. That's how I got hooked on climbing is I started climbing more and I really liked it. But then I realized that the gym I was climbing at had a fitness center that was a part of it. And so that was where it kind of clicked with me that I didn't need my Gold's Gym membership anymore, as an example, because I had the squat racks and the weights and the treadmills that I was using there at the climbing gym. And so I canceled that membership and then started that one up, down there. And so, yeah, the fitness is inherent to climbing, but then we've got all of the fitness center amenities as well to make sure that we can be that one-stop shop for folks that want to both climb and come to us for their fitness needs.
So when you started up, you knew the real estate aspect of it and buying property and you had good experience in that. But how did you know and learn the rest of starting a small business, running the books and the marketing and bringing in clients? How did you build your knowledge in that area?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we really know any more than we do when we started. We're still trying to figure it out. But if anybody has good tips on how to grow and market a climbing gym, I'm all ears. But we have a really good network. We put a lot of work in early, especially when we were opening Green Bay. We were opening during COVID or right after COVID. And so it was kind of a unique time for us because our jobs became remote, both me and Sam. And so we had a lot of flexibility. So we were able to come up here and take meetings with people and get the word out and network a lot. And so that really helped, get the word out, and what I always tell people is, especially when you're starting out, like do the things that don't scale, right? Like everybody wants the flashy, hey, let me buy some Instagram ads and then my business is going to go from 0 to 100 really fast. But the single most important thing we did was we would go to like farmers markets and these different community events with a table and some imagery. And then we would have no brochures. It was just us and a piece of paper and some pens. And we'd talk to people, get them excited about climbing. And then they're like, well, do you have a brochure? And we'd say, well, no, I'm sorry. We don't have any, but here's our email newsletter. You can sign up and we'll send you information. And you could tell nobody wanted to do it, but they all wanted the information. And so that newsletter alone sold us 500 pre-sold founding memberships before we opened. And it was kind of the thing that set us up for success before Green Bay opened.
So I remember meeting you at a farmer's market.
Yeah, that's
now
right.
that you say that, I remember that.
Good. Yeah. We were all over the place. Those were really fun times. It's tough to do that nowadays. We've got 2 kids each and a third on the way for me. So we're not there as much, but it's probably the most valuable thing we did.
As a marketing person, I thought that was pretty gutsy, to be very honest. And I appreciated it. No, you weren't going to hand me something, but by the way, take the QR code or, here's our email. So yeah.
I mean, we did the math and it was like $25 per email was the value that we would get from that. So it was really high value for us.
Excellent. So we are at the point where we're going to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back. We're glad you joined us this morning. Our guest this morning is Ben Ganther from Odyssey Climbing and Fitness. Before continuing our conversation with Ben, I'd like to tell you about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves a 29-county area with over 40 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, best practices, and many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, visit our website at score.org/WI/SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting or growing your business, and you can also complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply click on the Match a Mentor button, then complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor, like Terry, will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer assistance in many different areas. To support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you'd like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/WI/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application. We will get back to you to explain more. And finally, this reminder about the Biz Talk with SCORE podcast. The Biz Talk with SCORE podcast brings the same real-world information and insights from experienced entrepreneurs and business leaders, just like Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. However, the podcast is available when you are and where you are, so listen and subscribe. Available on most podcatchers and podcast apps. Thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. Now back to Ben Ganther from Odyssey Climbing and Fitness. So Ben, we were talking about building the business and expanding to Appleton and all of that. And one of the things that I was very curious about is, how do you find employees to work at a climbing gym?
It's definitely a challenge like it is for any business, but we do have a unique advantage in that there's quite a few people that want to work for us that are just interested in working and supporting for a climbing gym. So our biggest push was always around first opening, right? So when we opened Green Bay and we opened Appleton, because to run each gym, we have about 30 part-time employees. So someone working anywhere from 2 shifts a week to 3 or 4 shifts a week. Cause we're open pretty regularly. So generally 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then we close at 6 p.m. on Sundays. And then we have early morning hours, Monday through Thursday, alternating between the gyms at 6 a.m. So pretty wide range of hours that we have to fill. And then a host of different positions for coaches and route setters. And so, all in, it's a pretty big lift. But really the type of person that we're looking for is someone that wants to be a part of something, to be a part of a community and really, be involved in the climbing gym, climbing community, space. And so when we were first opening Green Bay, that was kind of the call to action we put out there, again, to our newsletter database, to our social media platforms. And what's cool about bringing a climbing gym to a community where there hasn't been one or there hasn't been one in a while is there's tons of people that are just excited that it's coming, right? And so that was kind of the way that a lot of our first hires, and so those are some of our best hires that we've had, came to the table for us, is they maybe are from here and they moved away and they discovered climbing and they loved it, and then they moved back and it wasn't there, right? And they kind of written that part of their life off. And so they're just so excited to be a part of it, that they'll say, hey, I'll do whatever you need. Just point me in the direction and we'll do it. And so, that's how we found a lot of employees, but we work with a lot of students, high school students, college students, and they're great too. That's kind of where they start finding their climbing journey and starting it off. That's kind of the mix.
Okay. So with managing that number of employees, how do you keep track of who's going to work when, where? Do you have software you're using to do that?
Yeah, we use a scheduling software, and then our, ERP system is what you'd call it, that does point of sale, membership management, all that stuff, has a clock in function. So we manage the time that way. So it's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So as you look at other aspects of your business, bookkeeping and things like that, is it a similar type of thing? You're using good software and managing it that way?
Yeah, we use QuickBooks Online. Again, our ERP system's designed specifically for the climbing gym industry. And so that'll export journal entries straight from our point of sale into QuickBooks. So once you get that set up, it's pretty seamless. So yeah, it's kind of the normal bookkeeping, closeout process at the end of the month that you'd probably have at any other business.
So realistically, with the work you had done getting the email list going, the work you did to set up the admin, you were able to focus your time really on setting up the climbing gym, finding the members, and getting the employees to make things work correctly.
Yeah, I would say, and that's probably where most of my time spent now is primarily on marketing and growth efforts.
And as you look at those, are you still primarily using online marketing?
It's a good question. And we keep going back and forth on it. I talked to some people that are pretty excited about digital marketing and believe really strongly in it, that say, hey, you do this and I guarantee you XYZ return on ROAS, and it gets me really excited. But then you look at the cost of it and you're like, gosh, that's so expensive. And so then you run a little experiment and it might work, it might not, and you're like, I can't commit, so you turn it off. And so we're actually running some online ads right now, and we're committing to it to try to actually run a campaign. And so we're pushing it through at least the end of November. So I guess ask me in a couple of months and I'll let you know if that's what our go-to plan is. But mostly it's still a lot of email marketing to the folks that I've been in. So kind of retargeting folks that have been to the gym before.
Great. All right. We're going to take our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Talk. We're speaking to Ben Ganther this week from Odyssey Climbing and Fitness. Before we get back to Ben, I have a quick education update to give you from SCORE. We're proud to announce that SCORE Wisconsin's annual Accelerate Your Business for Women conference is taking place on September 28th between 8 and 4 o'clock. It's going to be at the Kalahari Resort, and it'll feature presentations and seminars on things like finance, marketing, technology, life skills to all help you be more successful with your business. Everybody's welcome to attend, and the keynote speaker this year is Amanda Kroner, who is the founder of Carbless Cocktails and from Northeast Wisconsin. And by the way, also will be a guest on Biz Talk with Score in 2 weeks. But her and her husband have set up a fantastic business in Northeast Wisconsin, and it's an opportunity to hear her talk about that. It's an $89 discounted rate. If you sign up in advance, I think it's $99 at the door, or within the last week or two. And you can also get discounted room rates at Kalahari Resort. So again, it's Accelerate Your Business for Women conference from SCORE Wisconsin, and it takes place on September 28th, and it's from 8 to 3:30. So the last 3 conferences have been done very well and been well received. So take a look at that and see if you can attend. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Megan to continue our conversation with Ben.
Thank you, Terry. So I think when a lot of people think of climbing gym, one of the things that they might think of or come to their head is falling. And the safety aspect, it's not like going to a gym where you hop on a treadmill or do some weights. So there's, obviously safety around that. So it's kind of a 2-part question. How do you train your employees on that safety aspect? But then how do you reassure and train or whatever the phrase might be for especially a new customer or a new member?
Yeah. Really good question. And I'm glad you brought it up because it is, kind of a big differentiator for climbing gyms. So first on our staff side, all of our staff are trained to be certified climbing wall instructors. So there's an industry organization called the Climbing Wall Association that puts out programming that says you've got to, train or, have instruction delivered to your staff to reach this certification level from a certified climbing wall provider, which we have one on staff. But that allows us to make sure that our staff all have kind of the state of the industry level training to help manage risk within the space, because you are exactly right. Climbing is an inherently dangerous activity. Otherwise it wouldn't be climbing. If there's no risk of falling, it's not exactly climbing. So, there is some pretty thorough, training that our staff goes through to make sure that we can deliver the proper amount of risk management within the space. and provide a space that people can come in, have fun, and recreate. So a lot goes into the training. And then you'll see that when you come in, especially on your first visit. So nobody's allowed to climb at Odyssey without going through an orientation and getting some certifications, right? So you can come in with no knowledge of climbing, but you'll leave having received our, orientation training, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes. But that gives you the skill set to come in and climb at our facility. So that orientation really is both the opportunity for us to train you, but then also to, provide a little bit of hospitality, make sure that you're welcomed in the gym. If you're a little unsure of what you're going to be doing, make sure that we provide an encouraging, voice and face within the space, because it can be a little bit intimidating, and our goal is to make sure that everybody has as great of a time as possible. So, a lot of training on our staff on the front end, and then everybody gets an orientation and certifications in order to climb once they come in for that first visit.
So how does a climbing gym operate? You mentioned membership, but then is it open climb? Are there classes? What are the activities?
Yeah, kind of all the above. We kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink at it. It's the blessing and the curse of being a climbing gym in a community that's not like huge into climbing, right? So we've got our members that really love climbing, and, they buy the membership because it's the most affordable way to climb frequently at the gym. But then you can come in on a day pass, right? So you can come in pretty much any hours that we're open. So again, like 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a Sunday. And just try it out. Climb for fun, climb for an hour, climb for 2 hours, climb for a whole day, whatever it is. So those are two like regular ways that people come in and climb. But then we do youth programs. So anything from a birthday party or a field trip to our advanced comp team that trains 3 days a week for a couple hours at a time and competes, regionally, divisionally, and nationally on the youth circuits, for climbing. So, kind of a gambit of offerings, makes it interesting for us. But we try to find as many on-ramps to climbing for people as possible is probably the best way to think about it. So finding an excuse to come in and climb and get exposed to climbing and hopefully eventually become a lifelong climber is our goal.
So one of the things you had mentioned when I was talking to you at the Business After 5 at your climbing gym was about even working with nonprofits, or how the climbing gym is more than climbing. It's also that camaraderie and getting out of your head, of the things that might be bringing you down or worrisome. Do you want to touch a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, one just on like the community side is, climbing's different than most fitness activities in that it is inherently social. And there's two things that contributed to that. One is there's a good amount of rest time, right? So because you're going vertical into the air, you can't just like keep climbing nonstop for 45 minutes straight like you could if you're on a treadmill, right? So you climb up, maybe that took you 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then you're going to come down, you'll probably rest for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And so you're sitting at the ground, you're looking at your climb, someone else climbs it, and then you're talking to them, oh, hey, that was a great move. How'd you do that? We call it sharing beta is the lingo. And, you kind of strike up conversations rather easily versus you go to a traditional fitness center and you pop your headphones in and it's kind of taboo to talk to somebody if you don't know them and, that sort of thing. And so, it's really social. And then the other piece that, I think just helps people from a mental health standpoint. And I think this is true of most fitness and movement things, but when you're on the wall, it's the only thing you can think of, right? What's the next move I'm going to make? What's the next hold that I'm going to grab? And so, yeah, if you're going through something, if you're having a bad day at work or whatever it is, when you're on the wall, it kind of just all clears and resets. So yeah, I think it is a really powerful thing from a mental health standpoint too.
When you have youth coming in to learn climbing, is it usually with parents that they come in and they come together, or is it parents signing children up to kind of join and try a different activity?
Yeah, both. I mean, we'll have parents that'll just come in and explore with their kid or just let their kid climb, right? So kids under the age of 14 need to come into the gym with an adult if they're not signed up for a program. But if they're signed up for a program, yeah, they're coming and climbing with our instructors. They're teaching them technique. They're playing climbing games. they're teaching them how to become better climbers. Birthday parties, it's kind of what you'd imagine. We got a room, you can rent it out, you get, refrigerator, tables, chairs, all the fixings for having a fun time on a birthday party. And then the parents are just hanging out with their friends, watching them climb, helping out a little bit. And it's a good time.
So obviously one of the things you really want to do is hook somebody young and have them stay in climbing, whether it's with you or if they move somewhere else after school, but building that climbing community. Are you seeing that? You've only been open for a few years now, but are you seeing people really young people becoming what looks like will be long-term climbers?
We have. It's definitely on the smaller scale now, but it's definitely one of the theories of our business that, I think long term is really when our flywheel starts spinning. So the kids that started climbing on our climbing team with us in 2023 when we first opened, and they were 13 and they go through our program and then they graduate, they go to school, and then they come back in 10 years and they're 22, 23. If we did our job right, they're still climbers and they're getting a membership at Odyssey when they move back to town, right? And so that's the theory, that's the goal, but you see it with the kids that were on those original climbing teams when we first opened. I mean, we kind of threw those youth programs together without much planning and saying, hey, let's just do this thing. And there's probably like a 90% retention rate on those kids that started climbing with us at such a young age.
So one other transition that can happen with climbers is going from indoors to outdoors. One, do you do anything that helps prepare them for climbing outdoors? And do you see much of that, people going to climb outdoors after their experiences there?
We see it a lot. I mean, so I manage our social media accounts, and if our members follow us, we'll follow them back. And that's one of my favorite things to see is when they start climbing outdoors and posting it to social media and, starting their outdoor climbing adventure. So it's definitely happening. Other than just getting people exposed to climbing, there's not a ton that we do to prepare them for that. Primarily that's because, we have a very set, amount of risk in insurance and liability that we need to cover. So to start, taking on some of that to get people ready for outdoor climbing, it's not something that we represent, but we do partner with climbing guides that provide great service for getting people climbing outdoors. And so we'll put on like weekends of climbing at Devil's Lake for Odyssey members that are hosted through partner organizations of ours.
And what has climbing taught you about running a business?
I think there's a lot of risk management in both. And, I think my development background also taught me that too. But, we're always trying to mitigate, downside, whether that's from an insurance perspective and making sure that we have our processes and procedures in place, which if you're climbing, and that's your gear, that's your anchor systems, it's your rope, it's everything like that. And so, I think that's one of the big things. And then the other piece is it is a process, right? So nobody gets better at climbing just magically overnight. I mean, you got to put the work in, you got to take the steps, you have to fail a lot, and then learn from that, iterate, and then hopefully improve and get better. So there's a lot of parallels.
And if you look at the business itself, you do offer a number of other services like yoga and fitness and that. How important are those other services to the overall business offering? Is it really to help build the climbing business?
The goal of it is to really have as much value in our membership as possible. So we attract a pretty active clientele. And they oftentimes might have 2-3 different fitness memberships. And so if we can provide as much of their fitness needs under one roof, hopefully the goal is that those other, offerings they don't need, right? So if they're into yoga, they can do yoga here. If they are into lifting weights, they can lift weights here. And so, the goal is to really try to make our membership value as high as possible.
All right. So as you look at these last 3 years, what's been the most rewarding aspect of running this business?
There's been a few, the conversations with members about how meaningful it is to have a climbing gym in their community again. We got a lot of those when we first opened. But but it's been pretty neat. My daughter was born 2 months after we opened our first location. And she's now at an age where she, knows what Odyssey is and recognizes the logo and knows the building when we pull into the parking lot. And seeing her get excited about it is pretty special. So, yeah, that's definitely the most fulfilling part.
So I have to ask, what age will she start climbing?
Well, she could have started already. She's a little bit, she's risk averse. So we got to work on getting her to trust her systems, I think, a little bit more. But I had her, hold on to a monkey bar at like 18 months. And it's like classic, like 3, 4 pictures that I have of her where she's smiling and then she realizes that my hands are gone and she goes to confused to like terrified all in like a 3, 4 picture swipe. So I think I may have scarred her at a young age. So it might be a year or two, but we're working on it. My son's 18 months, so hopefully he'll start climbing around the time she does.
Well, maybe they'll inherit your risk management capabilities over
Yeah,
time.
there we go. There we go.
So when you look back to what are the things you'd rather not have to deal with? What do you like best? So let's go now with what do you like least about running a business?
That's funny, 'cause Sam and I have been talking a lot about that. And, um, you know, I think everybody glamorizes the be your own boss and make your own schedule side of things. And if that's what you're into, like, this is not the gig for you. Having a W-2 income and like 15, 20 vacation days, like, that's really the epitome of freedom and flexibility right there. Like, if that's what you're into, like, take it. But if you want to build something from scratch and, create something of value and ultimately, hopefully provide something that, makes a difference in the community, it's a pretty awesome and rewarding thing. So, it's all encompassing. There's no off days for us. Like, for me, it's 10 p.m. at night is when I can kind of turn my brain off a little bit because if anything happens at the gym, someone falls, there's an accident, that calls to me. And so there's just this like the burden of being a business owner is always on. So that's probably the part of it that, you take, but is not the most favorite part.
So you're in almost 3 years now, or at 3 years, close to 3 years now. Would you do this again?
We would, yeah. Again, we would definitely do it differently. I think that was the theme of how we designed Green Bay and Appleton. There's so many things that we learned that if we would have done them up front, it would have been a little bit easier on us. I think we stretched really, really hard, really, really fast. And so the joke has been now that we have a third kid on the way and the cadence of us opening gyms and having kids has basically been have a kid open a gym. And so the joke is, well, you're opening another gym next year. And the answer is absolutely no. So we're breaking that pattern. But yeah, we wouldn't trade it. We wouldn't trade it for the world.
Great. So as you look back, you had a career in real estate development. This was a pretty dramatic shift. When you did it, again, risk management, you took a risk. How do you feel right now? What would you tell others? Take that risk. How do you prepare for it? What would you say to somebody who's thinking about this?
Well, there is one thing that I tell everybody, and I read about it in a book. I believe it was called Originals. And now I'm blanking on the author, but he's got Adam Grant, I think like 3 or 4 bestsellers, but one of the best, kind of like business or thinking organizational books that I've read. And he tells a story about, the founders of Warby Parker and how they kept their like full-time jobs essentially as late as possible. And that allowed them the flexibility and creativity and financial, safety net to do aggressive and creative things with their business, right? When you don't have that, you're forced to figure out ways to make money fast and, maybe cut corners on the long-term vision of what you want to do. And so both Sam and I did something very similar where we kept our full-time jobs, basically up until the point that Odyssey opened. And that gave us a lot of flexibility because, it took us from 2019 when we first had the idea to 2023 to open that gym. And if we would have committed to trying to open a gym as our full-time job in 2019, there's no way we would have got there, right? We would have ran out of money fast. We would have ran out of resources fast and needed to give up the dream for, making our careers work. So yeah, that's the recommendation I would have is push forward. Try to follow the dream, but make sure that you've got some sort of plan to support you while you do it, at least until you can't anymore.
And a very good answer from a person with a risk management perspective. I really appreciate it and wish more entrepreneurs would think that way too. All right, we're going to take our final break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their generous support of Biz Talk. Haling and Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for the future. Haling and Associates, personal connection, positive results. Wherever you are in life or the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works to match the banking and wealth services needed to help you complete your mission. And thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the bi-weekly business newspaper, serving Northeast Wisconsin with the latest business news and topics for the region. We are grateful for the support of Community First Credit Union. At its core, CFCU is the community of member owners where people work together to improve their financial well-being and help one another. New North, the Regional Marketing and Economic Development Corporation, is an active supporter of SCORE. The New North facilitates economic growth and helps people in this region live their best lives. Since 1919, Baird has guided families through investment, trust, estate, and tax planning advice. So no matter what the future brings, you can be confident you're ready because your family is Baird's focus. We've been talking to Ben Ganther from Odyssey Climbing and Fitness, and now I'd like to know how our listeners can get a hold of you, maybe connect with that email that you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. You can find us on our website, odysseyclimbing.com. The contact us page is a good way to get a hold of me and the rest of our management team. So if you want to connect or learn more, that's a great way to start. Our social media is fairly active. Instagram is at odyssey.climbing and Facebook is just Odyssey Climbing and Fitness. But yeah, those are probably the best ways to get in touch and kind of see what's going on at Odyssey.
Okay. Ben, you've had a successful startup, and in 3 years to have 2 locations is pretty impressive for a lot of small businesses, and to build the business the way you have, to have the email marketing list of 40,000 people beyond belief good. So you've done a lot of good things, and you've built this business to a really nice spot after 3 years. What are you thinking about for the future?
The future for us really looks like growing more climbers within the Northeastern Wisconsin community. So that we say a lot internally, we want the 920 to be a climbing community, not just a community that has a climbing gym. And so whether that's growing membership or one of the big youth programs that we're pushing right now is called the Wisconsin High School Climbing League, where the goal is to have every high school have a climbing club or climbing team around the area. That's what it looks like, where people think of Green Bay, Appleton, the surrounding communities, and they think of Odyssey as a place that they and their families like to go climb and recreate.
And as you build that, are you seeing the path start to make sense and see how you move forward to it?
I think we see that there's a lot more work to be done. So yes, but I'll give you for instance, it's all I think about all day, every day. And there's people I meet every week, where you tell them, oh yeah, we own a climbing gym in Green Bay and Appleton. They're like, what's that? Right? They've never heard of it, and I think that's a good sign that there's more opportunity for us, to get the word out and keep pushing along that mission.
Okay. Well, it's been really great to have you on the show. You've got a great story, And it's another example of sport and outdoor recreation business has really been starting to make a difference to people in the community. And we can see how and why people are spending money more and more in this area as they have the income to do that. And it's great to see somebody have a passion for this, start it up, and really see it be successful. So really grateful for what you've done for this area and appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun, you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
For listeners, you've been listening to Biz Talk with Score. This show will come out as a podcast sometime next week. And you can go and listen to it on all your favorite podcatchers. You can find it on our score.org/WI/Northeast-Wisconsin website. And you'll have episodes from the past 3 years. So you can re-listen to this one. You can listen to other ones that are out there. And it's a great opportunity to learn more about some incredible businesses in Northeast Wisconsin. So thanks again for joining us, and we will talk to you next week.